Hi guys, Jamie here, and today I'm going to be talking you through some pretty concerning changes that are happening for landlords in Wales. Before we get into the video, please hit like and subscribe for more great content. Okay, so let's get into it. As I said, some pretty concerning changes happening for landlords in Wales. And because of these changes, which are going to be implemented later in the year, landlords are leaving the property sector at double the rate of the UK average. And that is according to new data from Property Mark. Its figures show that in the UK on average, landlords are selling an average of 2 properties per branch. And in Wales, this number is jumping to 5 per branch, which is obviously pretty ludicrous, especially when you consider that the average number of new applicants in Wales is far exceeding that in the rest of the UK. So per Property Mark branch across the UK, 118 potential tenants are registering compared to 49 seen in December. And in Wales, this has jumped to an average of 318 rental seekers, tenants, per branch. So supply is going down, demand is through the roof. Obviously this isn't good. So what is it all about? The Welsh Government, with all their wisdom, have decided to implement something called the Rental Homes Act. And this is all about improving how landlords manage their properties and how the tenants rent across Wales. Sounds good, right? What's not to like? These changes are going to come in place from the 15th of July this year. And they're breaking it down into 2 clear types of landlords. You've got community landlords, which would be local authorities and registered social landlords. And then you've got private landlords, like you and me. Okay, so all sounds good so far. Let's go through the pros and then the cons. So the pros. This act is bringing a new emphasis on ensuring that homes are fit for human habitation. In a sense, getting rid of crap landlords, getting rid of those slum landlords that were going on in the 80s and 90s or whatever, which are all but extinct anyway. But it's really up in the ante with that. Testing electrical safety of the property is now mandatory. Smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms have to be fitted and working. Failure to do so is going to result in the loss of rent, basically. You won't be able to collect rent unless your property is up to standard. Fair. I think that's absolutely fair. No one should be in this game to be ripping off tenants and providing a substandard level of housing. It's just not, it's just not cricket, is it? We've all got to live somewhere. We should be doing this for the good of everybody. We get money in our pockets, the tenants get somewhere great to live. Okay, all good so far. There's also a change coming in that you could repossess an abandoned property without having to go to court after giving 4 weeks notice. So that's good without the rigmarole of court. Where the tenant has breached the occupation contract or tenancy agreement, for those of you like me who speak sense, then the minimum number of terms that can be given is 1 month, and the notice period can be shorter if they've breached something like antisocial behaviour rules or are in serious rent arrears. And there's also going to be more clearly written contracts setting out the tenant's rights and responsibilities. So good for both parties. Bit of transparency, absolutely. I think I've been pretty reasonable so far, laying out the pros and the cons, being diplomatic. But on a personal level, I think it's ridiculous. I don't think anyone really asked for these changes to come into place. And I don't think anybody, especially in the landlord sector, is going to be particularly happy about this. It seems like there's a vendetta from the Welsh Government against landlords. I mean, UK-wide, we're stung pretty hard when it comes to like tax and other things, but the Welsh Government have taken this one step too far. So let's take a look at the cons, which are ridiculous name changes for no reason is one. And I mean, that's sort of by the by, but it just niggles me. So tenants are no longer going to be called tenants because apparently that's really outdated and derogatory. So they're now going to be called contract holders. You know, I'm sure there was like a tenant uprising, wasn't there? Because they were called tenants and not contract holders. That's utterly ridiculous. The amount of hours and manpower that law probably took to come up with is, you know, it's just wasting money, hemorrhaging money. And a tenancy agreement is also deemed oppressive. So now we call this an occupation contract. Again, nonsense. Another con, in my opinion. You know, if you're sitting on the other side of the fence, you might take this as a pro. So the no-fault eviction notice the period given will increase from 2 months to 6 months. So a no-fault eviction is basically, say I wanted to sell the house, but I've got tenants in there. At present, I'd be able to give them two months notice, but from now on, I have to give them 6 months notice. Obviously, they're well within their rights. If they want to leave before that, that would be great. But other than that, they have got a full 6 months before I'm allowed to get rid of them. And to top that off, a landlord is not allowed to give that 6 months notice until the first 6 months of the contract has started. So essentially, if you start renting your property out in January, you have to wait until July before you can serve them notice in order for another 6 months to elapse before they actually have to leave. So 12 months, effectively. Also, a landlord will not be able to give this notice unless they've complied with certain obligations and registration with the Rent Smart Wales and have adhered to the deposit protection rules. Okay, so that might be a little bit harsh. Maybe that's in the pro column, again, sort of supporting good landlords and stopping poor landlords. We'll switch that one over. If a landlord issues a no-fault possession in response to a repair complaint, then the court can actually refuse to grant that possession order, and they will have to wait another 6 months before they ask again. So if your tenant's asked you to do something and you've said no and handed them a no-fault possession, you know, an eviction notice effectively, then they can actually wait another 6 months before you can actually ask for it, because it's done in relation to them asking you for something and you not wanting to do it effectively. It's giving tenants more protection from evictions. I'm not sure how much of a problem this has been historically. I know personally I've always had a really good relationship with agents, really good relationship with tenants, especially if they're good. Obviously nightmare tenants, then I think I'm hopefully not speaking out of turn by saying that you should be well within your rights to ask them to leave. If they're not treating your property properly and they're not getting on with you, complying with what you ask of them, then I think you should be able to ask them to leave. This one is a bit weird. With the new act coming in, there's going to be better succession rights for tenants, or contract holders. So this allows contract holders to set out who has the right to continue living in the property if they die. So this enables both a priority and a reserve successor to the occupation contract. So if someone dies, or is going to die or dies, they can nominate a spouse or a child, another family member to live in the property after they've gone. Now, this is a bit of a weird one if you ask me, because surely if you have an agreement, occupation contract with a tenant, then if they die, that's the agreement ended. But according to this new law that's come in, actually they get to nominate somebody else to take that over. Again, I'm not sure what's prompted this, to be perfectly honest. There's also improved flexibility for joint contract holders. So if a man and a wife have got a contract with you as the landlord and one of them leaves, another contract holder can come in. So new joint contract holders can be added or removed from the current contract. All of this coupled with the fact that next year there's going to be apparently, and again I need to do some more research on this and I'll do a video to confirm, there's apparently going to be a new law coming in that states that if you have a second home or a holiday home in certain areas, then your council tax is going to go up by 300%. Now, is it me, or is there a bit of a vendetta against landlords in Wales? That's all pretty negative, and I totally get that. I'm really annoyed by the whole situation. I don't think it was requested. I think there could be a lot more subtle things going on. Conversations with landlords, conversations with people, property investors, who actually bring a lot to the economy, by the way, that could have made certain changes without putting these in place, because I think it's pretty much like it or lump it. And the tenants are starting to have a lot more rights over the property than the person who actually owns the property. So understandably, as I said at the beginning, these landlords who are leaving, I get it. All that being said, there is always opportunity in chaos. So with lots of landlords getting out, if you're an opportunist and you've got some cash in your back pocket and you're looking at property in the long term, then I, for one, am going to be jumping in. So if there's landlords selling off because they're put off by these changes, then maybe landlords who are getting towards their later years and thinking it's too much hassle, I just want to sell up, get my retirement pot, I'm going to be straight in there. And I'd encourage any younger property investors to do the same. Property is never, unless you're doing flips, but again, that's sort of short-sighted in a sense, it should never be a short-term solution. Always look at property in the long term, and in the long term, if you've got good relationships with agents, you've got good relationships with tenants, and you've got a quality property, and you're willing to get your property up to a good standard, I don't think that this should be scaring anybody. Yes, it's unfair in a sense, and if you've got houses in certain areas that are prone to poor tenants, then you potentially going to get yourself in a little bit of trouble with this. But look, taking a long-term view, I'm quite confident that property is still a good bet. Please let me know what you think. Drop me messages, stick it in the comments, send me an email. Love hearing from you and really appreciate all of your feedback. I get loads of feedback, and although we've only got sort of 350 odd followers at the minute, which is an absolutely minuscule amount, so please hit like and subscribe. The interaction that I get from people watching these videos is really good. So thanks very much. Let me know what you think. Give it a thumbs up. Really appreciate it. Take care.